The following is a presentation of Project Independence and WCWP. Project Independence is the Aging in Place initiative of the town of North Hempstead. We provide programs and services designed to assist and support the older town residents who wish to remain in their homes as they age. If we don't currently provide a service, we will try and connect you to that service. Call 311 or 869-6311 to get more information or receive services.
Welcome to Project Independence and You.
Good morning and welcome to Project Independence and You on Community Talk Radio, 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. I'm your host today, Rebecca Miller, along with Kristina Liu, who is we're going to be co-hosting together. She's also the radio show producer and very, like I always say, the producer of Project Independence and You. So today, actually, we don't have Otto. We allowed Otto to take off.
That's right.
Definitely miss Otto when he's not here, but I think Kristina and I can handle it. I really do. I think that we'll
try our best.
We'll just be missing him. That's all. So our guest today is Taryn Kutujian, and Taryn is from the Alzheimer's Association, the Long Island chapter, and you're the Senior Community Education Manager. And we're so happy to have you here today because this topic is always very serious. And it is a very serious topic, obviously. And not that there's not a lot of hopeful things out there, but it's wonderful to be able to talk about the topic that we're going to be dealing with today, which is healthy living for your brain and body. And I was really lucky enough to be in a workshop where I did learn a lot about healthy living for your brain and body. And even when you have Alzheimer's, and there's still so many positive things to do. So we're so thankful to have you on the program today. So let's just get right into it. First of all, welcome, Taryn. We're so glad to have you.
Thank you, everyone. Welcome. And thank you. And hello to everyone at Project Independence. And hello to Otto. We miss you.
So to kind of just start at the very beginning, I'm curious to, kind of understand what kind of results you see. I guess that's kind of the end result, but from the healthy living options that are out there that we'll be talking about in detail, and what are some of the positive effects on it? Like, let's start off positive. Healthy living is really the way to go. So what's kind of like, is there like a core 3 or 4 things that you talk about?
Absolutely. So just like you said, Rebecca, there's so many great things to take away from this topic. It really gives people a lot of real, tangible, practical things that they can do. And one of the best things about this presentation and this topic for everyone is there's no such thing as a one size fits all. So, taking something as an umbrella term like exercise, which is one of those kind of what you're saying, like those 4 core, areas that we'll talk about. Exercise is a big word, right? It's a small word, but it's a big word. It can mean a lot of different things. And based on who you are and maybe you have limitations, physical limitations, or whatever the case may be, exercise can be very different and look different to everyone. So for us, in terms of exercise, we're really talking about anything that gets your heart rate up, anything that gets you moving, anything that maybe you're getting a little bit of a sweat or a lot of sweat, whatever that is for you. So for me, one of the things that I love, that I consider to be exercise because it gets my heart rate pumping, is dancing. I love to dance, and there's so many different ways that you can do that. You can dance around your house. You can go out and dance with friends. You can, if you're someone like me who plays video games, you can get, these up and moving things like Just Dance and all of these great types of things. So anything that will get your heart rate moving will not only help you physically, but it will also stimulate you mentally. You get all of those great endorphins running through your body. It also helps you feel good about what you're doing. And the other great thing about exercise is it doesn't have to be, an hour a day. It doesn't have to be, 40 hours a week that you're spending. A lot of people will think it's running on a treadmill or running a marathon. And of course, for some people, those are great options. And those are absolutely perfect things to do. But it can be a simple walk for 10, 15 minutes a day around your neighborhood. It can be, something like, I give this example. If you're someone who maybe has difficulty walking, but you want to be moving, do you have a pantry? Do you have any kind of cans, or do you have anything around that you can put in your hands and lift up and out, and anything that makes you feel good, anything that will help you get your body moving? And everybody starts at a different place. So if you're starting to exercise and that's not something that you're normally used to doing, starting out small, 5 minutes a day, and then maybe adding 10 minutes, then doing 15 minutes a day, getting yourself to not only do something you enjoy, which is really the most important part, but something that you're going to want to do every day. So exercise is a huge, huge thing. Also, something like eating a balanced and healthy diet. So again, big umbrella words, right? Balanced and healthy means different things for different people. There are many people who have dietary restrictions, limitations, or other things that they have to take into account. Children, people who eat very different things in their house, right? Many people trying to cook many different types of things. So really focusing on lowering your fat intake and trying to infuse those fruits and vegetables. It's not always the easiest thing to do, but again, being mindful of these things is often one of the biggest steps to kind of starting to implement these steps, making that decision. Am I going to have orange juice for breakfast this morning instead of coffee? Or maybe I'm going to supplement, instead of my bagel in the morning, maybe I'm going to have a fruit salad every once in a while, or a yogurt or something like that. Also things like getting sleep, believe it or not, getting enough sleep can, if you're sleep deprived or you're regularly not getting enough sleep, it may actually result in problems with memory and thinking, right? You're not yourself. And then over time, you continue to experience those effects. Also things like your mental health, being mindful of your mental health. We've all gone through a lot in the past 2.5 years, many, many things that can affect our mental health. So being mindful of what's triggering you, what's affecting you, and how it's affecting you, and being kind to yourself and allowing yourself that space to say, okay, this is what I'm dealing with right now. Can I get some help by maybe dancing, right? Getting some endorphins going, or maybe talking to someone about this. And really, going back to the exercise, what I was saying before about doing something that's meaningful to you. Also in terms of social activities and things, thinking about what you enjoy. And it doesn't have to be going out. Maybe it's, knitting something that you've always wanted to do, and it's the yarn just sitting there and you want to get going and getting started with it. So it's pursuing things and thinking about what's good for me, not what's good for my friend, or what does my significant other say I should do, or my son or my daughter. Thinking about yourself and what you're passionate about and what you truly enjoy, and translating that into things that help you move.
One of the things that I deal with, I'm a yoga instructor, is especially when I have older people in the class, and I have the full range, people who just started. So there's never a wrong time to start exercising. At 80 and 90, we also have Project Independence fitness classes on our North Hempstead television. And we've had people call who never exercised before and say, "Oh, love your chair yoga," or, "Thank you so much. This is the first time I've ever even exercised." So, it's important, for people to understand that too, that there's always a place to start. And what I was kind of talking about before is, and for those of us who have always exercised and been very active and are getting older, your goal isn't to kind of do what we used to do. It's kind of like, all right, just accept where you're at now, and then maybe continue to exercise. It's just as important. It's just as good for you. It's really, listening to your body, which is so important. I used to go on the elliptical for 75 minutes. And today I'm doing 30. I'm just like, it's too much. It took me a while to accept the fact that, first of all, I don't think 75 minutes is good for anyone. It's too long. So, I kind of slowly started going, less time. So really understanding where you're at and growing from there, and not kind of going to where, when I was in high school, I used to run track, or when I was here, well, you know what, we're, in our 50s or 60s and older, so whatever, that's what I like what you were saying, just do what you can.
Yeah, and I think that that's what's important, because it's certainly, and we deal with this, with different versions of, people feeling overwhelmed and not doing something, and I think that's the most important message of this is that, doing a little thing or making a little change can really go a long way, and you can build up on that. I think that's why so many people just say, I don't want to exercise, I don't want to eat healthy, it's too overwhelming when you think about it in this, massive sense, but just doing these little, tips and tricks that you both were sharing, I think is so important.
Absolutely. I mean, even something like stretching, people don't realize the benefits that your body can reap from daily regular stretching, 5-10 minutes a day in the morning. Or if you're someone, like Rebecca was saying with yoga, if you like to meditate, if you enjoy yoga or something like that, just a few minutes in the morning. We were recently had our Alzheimer's Association international conference in July. And what we found through that, one of the studies that was released through there was after 12 months of regular physical activity, with the largest ever clinical trial of older adults with mild memory problems. After 12 months of just consistent stretching or aerobic activity, they experienced no significant cognitive decline.
Wow.
So while we can't predict and while we can't say there's a correlation, we see things are happening when we engage ourselves. And again, that's just regular physical activity. That doesn't mean, running a marathon every day. And again, if you do that, that's awesome. But just doing anything, those little things and doing them regularly can really, really affect you long term in the best ways.
Wow.
Right. And that's kind of what I was like looking for is, those kinds, research shows that, there was no decline after a year. So, I mean, some studies, of course, but,
Sure.
These are the things that we can do. We can take an active role and make some changes in, I think, so many diseases too, so many conditions that, that as we age, unfortunately, come our way. But even just sitting on your chair, you can exercise. You can extend the arms, you can open the chest, you can take in nice deep breaths and fill the lungs. I mean, Kristina and I talk about this all the time. The whole breathing in positive, think of something really positive as you fill your body with oxygen, like positive energy, and then you exhale to soften. There's so many things. I mean, I could talk about yoga all day long. If I go off on a tangent, just, reel me back in. But, being mindful of all those kinds of things. Are there any foods that are I want to say they find are really not good, and foods that are good, or certain ways of cooking? You hear so many things like don't cook on nonstick, don't use sprays, don't use this. And, is there research? Like, what are the foods that really can, be negative to kind of stay away from, and those that are good, which, I think we probably know a lot of it, but are there any other tidbits you could give us?
Absolutely. That's a great question. And again, it ties right into, everything that we're talking about now. So, at the Alzheimer's Association International Conference in July, another, big thing that was revealed through research was, ultra processed foods are really, really the source of a lot of issues for people as they age. And this was a large study that was done. It was done with approximately 10,775 people over an 8-year period. And what they found was that people who consumed the highest amount of these ultra processed foods, and we'll talk about, what that means in a second, they actually had a 28% faster cognitive decline in their, what we call global cognitive scores, which are things like your memory, your executive functioning, so your judgment, your decision making, things like that, your verbal fluency, so your ability to speak and to interpret language, things along those lines. And high consumption was defined as over 20% or more of the caloric intake daily. So ultra processed foods are things that have significant industrial processing, things like white bread, things like sodas, frozen foods, so things that are cooked later but are frozen in that state, things like most hamburgers, French fries, ice creams, things like that. So many of these things are things that we're all sitting there going, oh man, these are, but there's a lot of ways.
I'm welling up right now.
I know. And then there's also things that, let's say taking fries, for example, right? I love fries. I love them. Pizza too, love pizza. But there's things that we can do, like you were saying, Rebecca, like what can we do to kind of navigate these facts now that we know what they are? So let's say fries, I can go and get potatoes from my farmer's market, or I can, go get some organic potatoes and I can make my own. I can cook them in a way that I know exactly what's going into them. And that's a huge thing. Whole foods, whole ingredients, let's say I can air fry them, I can bake them, I can, find healthier alternatives, versus going to, let's say, a fast food chain or, and of course, are these things that many of us enjoy? Of course. And there are things that, can we do them sporadically? Absolutely. So, but this study is really saying regular, high intake of these foods. So 20% or more of your calories. And if you think about a lot of these foods, sodas, hamburgers, fries, they are high calorie foods. So they're also infusing a lot of those calories that you're getting, and they're all from that kind of ultra processed pool. So, it doesn't have, of course, fruits and vegetables are absolutely there, but it doesn't have to just be, okay, eating healthy equals only eating fruits and vegetables. You want to incorporate more of those into your diet, but also be more mindful of things like where your food is coming from, sourcing your ingredients, everything down to the spices that you use. Or if you don't use a lot of spices and herbs, think about, trying herbs and spices and tasting them and seeing what you like and what you enjoy. And I know this is difficult, in terms of, let's say, if you have kids or if you have people in your family that, eat certain ways, either because they have to for medical reasons, or maybe they have certain dietary needs, or maybe they just like certain things that they like and they're not there yet where you are. This can be difficult to navigate. So a lot of times it's thinking creatively about, what do I want to eat? What do I see myself enjoying? Let's say air frying. So, a lot of people have really gravitated towards air frying because they like that crisp and crunch, right? Me too. They like that crisp and crunch.
We talk about air frying a lot. A lot of our topics end up in the air frying realm.
Because it's like, it's one of the coolest things, right? Because you get that crunch without getting that, all of the side effects or all of the byproducts of, submerging your food in oil. What you were mentioning before about oils or other things, so two of the diets that we really talk about are the Mediterranean diet and the DASH diet, the Mediterranean and DASH diet, which is the dietary approaches to stop hypertension. And these are really a focus on healthy fats, things like healthy oils, not really things like vegetable oil, olive oil, let's say, olive oils or grapeseed oil, something like that, that's not, not corn oil or peanut oil, that tend to be higher in fat and calories as well. So taking a look at those things too.
Thanks, Taryn. We do have to take a quick break. I have some questions about different kinds of oil, saturated, polyunsaturated. I don't know if that's your field, but it is confusing for a lot of people too. So maybe we can talk about that when we come back. But we're speaking with Taryn Kutujian about healthy living for your brain and body. And she's with the Alzheimer's Association of Long Island chapter. And we will be right back.
So I get this call from my grandma, and she's like,
"What's a podcast, and how much does it cost?"
So I tell her, podcasts are like radio shows, but you can download them on any device and listen to them anywhere at any time, and they're free. And then she says,
"I see, but where can you find good ones?"
And I'm like, go to wcwp.org/podcast and check out the lineup of original shows, or download any podcast app on your phone or tablet and search for LIU Studios. And she's all like,
"Oh, that sounds easy."
And then she asked me what an app is.
LIU Studios Podcasts, available on any podcast app. Those little button things on your phone screen. Just ask your grandkids.
And welcome back to Project Independence in You on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. Your part of your co-host team today, Rebecca Miller, along with Kristina Liu. We allowed Otto to take off for the day. So Kristina and I will be handling Project Independence in You Community Talk Radio all day today. We have a great guest today, Taryn Kutujian, and we're speaking with Karen all about healthy living for your brain and body. And Karen is a senior community education manager with the Alzheimer's Association, the Long Island chapter. So, right before break, why do they call it vegetable oil if it's not really that good for you? And what are the best kinds of oils to use?
So yeah, so that's a great question. So, kind of like we were talking about before with exercise, how it's kind of that umbrella, and there's a lot of things involved with it. There's a lot of different types of oils under vegetable oils. So many of us have maybe been familiar, I know I was when I was a kid, of that, gigantic, 2 or 3 gallon, thing of vegetable oil that my family and probably everybody else's family always used to get because it was easy and it was cheap and it was quick. So that's actually, not one of the best oils for you. It's typically very high in fat, because of the way it's processed and the way it's produced. So again, going back to that ultra processed foods. So there are also, there are also things like oils that are ultra processed. So when we're looking at oils or things that we're cooking with, you want to take a look at, kind of the most simplified oils, the ones that not only will be the best for you as far as flavor and taste, but will have good smoke points, which basically means that, for you, when you're cooking with it, the smoke point has to be at a certain level where you still retain that nutrition from the food, because what will happen with certain oils is when they get to a certain temperature, they actually start to really strip the food of really all of the nutritional value. So things like olive oil, things like grapeseed oil, extra virgin olive oil, I know a lot of people are really a fan of, canola oil as well. These are ones that if you take a look at their ingredients and you look at them, they're a lot simplified. They're a lot more simplified. They're a lot more they're refined in terms of the way they're processed. They're processed a lot more simply. And if you notice, they're usually, they come in smaller jars and in smaller quantities because of the way in which they're produced. So this is one of the things, and again, everyone's different. Everyone may have different dietary needs and issues, and some people really will use, let's say, instead of oils, they might use like 1 pat of butter, because that's kind of, a little bit of getting that fat and oil in there, or maybe a little bit of avocado oil as opposed to vegetable oil. Again, finding the flavors and finding what works best for you.
Right. Thank you so much for that. It's really great information. So for someone who is maybe kind of newly diagnosed with Alzheimer's and their family, is this part of kind of the education that you provide? So, and if so, when is if not, like, or if so, when is the right time to kind of present this type of like lifestyle change?
Sure. So, what you said is great in terms of before. There's never a wrong time, or there's never, an appropriate time to start. And what you had just mentioned about a lifestyle change, that's really what we don't want the person to think, or we don't want their family to think. We don't want, there's so much going on already. If there's a diagnosis, or if someone becomes aware, their family becomes aware that they now have a progressive brain disease, we don't want to also make them feel like they need to completely overhaul every single thing. So that's why we're big fans of starting small, looking at the areas that you feel are manageable, that you feel you can work with. So let's say if frozen foods are really kind of a big thing. So looking at, what is it that, what's the reason for the frozen food? Is it lack of time? Is it, the caregiver is working, 2 or 3 jobs, or, taking care of many people, and there's a lack of time? Or is there a lot of takeout, right? So thinking about that, and how can we kind of address those needs? So some of it is looking at, what's happening, how we can, focus on healthy aspects. And honestly, sometimes it's not even anything to do with food, or food comes later on in the process. A lot of being healthy is not just food and exercise. It's also your mental health. It's your physical health. It's, your confidence and how you feel about yourself and relationships and people around you. So one of the things we really try to focus on, even more so than food and diet in the very beginning when we're trying to help somebody, unless there's, of course, an immediate need like obesity or diabetes or something of that nature, is really, helping them understand what resources are available to them. And kind of like you said, Rebecca, the hope that's still here, regardless of what the situation may look like. People who are either newly diagnosed or who are progressing through Alzheimer's or another type of dementia may begin withdrawing from friends or family. They may not feel equipped to kind of wear the same hats, metaphorically, that they have, whether they're community leaders, whether they work in full-time or part-time jobs, whether they're volunteers, whether they, let's say, are the lifeblood of their family and they drive people everywhere, or, in in many couples, one person kind of does one thing and another person does other things. And there's a lot of guilt and sort of confusion on how am I going to make all of this okay for my family, and how am I going to navigate through this? So a lot of times we focus on those immediate needs first, because everything that's happening in that person's mind ultimately will affect their physical health, their diet, their cognition, and their lifestyle moving forward.
Right. Yeah. So it's so you kind of start really very basic and more of like intaking and looking at the whole picture versus, all right, hey, here's a good diet for you, So it's really looking at that. And I mean, it's so important for anything, like, anybody who goes to the doctor, I've noticed too that in the last several years, when I go for a checkup or or my kids even do, they do like a mental health assessment now to see if you're depressed, if you have suicidal thoughts or anything. And it's every time, that you go there. So, I mean, that's a great awareness, I think too. And, hopefully it'll get even a little bit more, there'll be a little bit more assessments too, because it's really to gauge, where you're at is looking at the whole picture. So, is there a number specific to the Long Island chapter that somebody could call, especially if they're listening and they're, hearing a lot of this great advice that you're giving? Is there a good number to call?
Absolutely. So I'm going to give you kind of two numbers. So you may be listening to this right now, wherever you are. Maybe you're on Long Island, maybe you're listening to it somewhere else, or maybe you're thinking about someone right now who may not be in New York or may not be on Long Island, maybe a loved one in Kansas or Texas or Ohio or upstate New York or anywhere in between. So our national helpline is 800-272-3900. So 1-800-272-3900. 3,900. So we're a national organization. We are in all 50 states, all across the country. So if you're calling, let's say from Nassau County, New York, Long Island, and you're looking for resources for yourself, but you're also looking for resources for your loved one who lives in, let's say, Westchester or lives in Ohio, we can provide you with resources for both of those locations, local resources, and also things that anybody can take advantage of all over the country. Things like our education programs, support groups that are nearest to that person, care consultations as well. So our national line. And even if you're local to Suffolk County or Long Island, you can always call our national line, because they will get you in touch directly with us at the Long Island chapter if you're looking for us. And in terms of the Long Island chapter, our local Long Island number is 631-629-6950. So that's 631-629-6950. So again, if you forget, the Long Island number, you can always go to our website. You can always call our 800-272-3900, and our website is alz.org/Long Island. If you're looking for any other location anywhere else besides Long Island, you can go to alz.org/find us, or you can call us and we can tell you where the nearest chapter is.
Okay, great. And they could always call 311 too, anybody listening, or 516-869-6311. And we'll be happy to give out, the contact information. Taryn, so can you talk to us a little bit? You did provide some information. So you have a little slide on the brain, and then I really want to hear about the heart and brain connection.
Sure. So our brain, right? Our brain is the captain of the ship, right? So there's so many things that are happening in the brain, and really, the hallmark of Alzheimer's or other types of dementia are those formations of what we call plaques and tangles. So these are basically roadblocks that occur in the brain that prevent synapses from being able to fire, that not only affect our ability to make associations and connections, but affect different parts of our brain over time, depending on, the nature of the type of dementia that we have. Because dementia, there's over 200 types of dementia, and Alzheimer's disease is one of the types of dementia under that umbrella. But Alzheimer's disease is the most common form of dementia. It accounts for 60 to 80% of all cases of dementia. Mm-hmm. And in New York State alone, we have over 410,000 individuals that have some form of dementia. So this is something that really truly affects us, and it's something that we need to think about in terms of, information to keep our brains healthy, keep our brains strong, and as we age, especially getting regular diagnostic testing and getting regular physicals is really, really important. So going back to what Rebecca had mentioned before about where do we start in terms of assessments and treatments for an individual. Certain nutritional aspects or different things might also be evident in the blood work that's done with that person. So there might be things that, that person's maybe liver enzymes might be elevated, or maybe, their blood sugar, or maybe they have co-occurring issues already like diabetes or high blood pressure that also have to be taken into account. So these are things that really affect many different types of issues with treatment and the types of treatment that someone receives. Now, getting oxygen to the brain is really important. So that's one of the reasons why exercise is so important for anyone, right? For anyone as we age, but for people in general, because getting oxygen to our brain and stimulating our brain with enough oxygen and blood flow is really, really important for us as we age. The heart and the brain connection is extremely important. 25% of all of the blood pumped in our bodies goes right to our brain. So that's significant. That's a huge, huge percentage. So that means that every time our hearts are beating and pumping blood, we're trying to get it up to our brains. So if there are things happening in our bodies that are making that difficult, things like blockages, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, right? Things that are in our bodies or could affect us over time. And again, where do these things come from, right? Some things come from genetics, right? We know that there are genetic components to some of these things, but then also there's diet and lifestyle factors as well. But one of the best things about diet and lifestyle is that, like we've been talking about, you can start at any time and you can immediately start seeing the positive effects of those changes.
That's
it's just so, and this, it always strikes me, all these little things that you're talking about, and I mean the body connectedness just always will forever blow my mind, just how everything really is impacted by one another. And I think that's what's so good about all these little kind of tips and tricks. And we always throw the word golden nugget around on our show, and you're giving us so many golden nuggets. I mean, you should only see the paper that's in front of me right now. But I think that these tips are, so important. And like, just to really drive home, it's never too late to start to see results. Because I know, and I've had conversations with my own family members and, who will remain nameless, who said, oh, I'm too old to start that. And, I can't, but it's so important of a message to say, just, you can take this initiative, right?
one little step, right?
Yeah, and it's something that, it really is never too late to do these things. And as you said, to start seeing the benefits, is just so, is so important. So that's what I'm taking away from all of that.
And it seems too that so much of what you're recommending to do, it really is good in so many instances.
Right, it impacts so many different things.
Absolutely.
So I want to get more into like cognitively what we can do, because I have so many game apps. After doing that workshop, I am like, okay, I'm doing match game, I'm doing word search, I'm doing, all those kinds of things. So though, so you have those types of things, right, where you could work on things when you're alone, sometimes you're alone too. And then, but also socializing is so important. And so what is your kind of prescription for those kinds of things and really kind of working the brain out, between social and cognitive games and those kinds of things?
I love this question. It's always one of my favorite things to talk about in our presentations and in our workshops with people, especially seniors. And while I'm absolutely not a medical professional, I'm an educator, I can definitely give my educator's version of that answer. So, like you said, the brain games are some of the best ways. And again, thinking of things you enjoy, right? Most people really enjoy things like Sudoku or things, let's see, Words with Friends. Words with Friends is a really popular one. Anything that really will get your brain engaged. There's so many interactive things. We live in such an amazing world with technology where, there's so many times where technology is a hindrance, but now we have things like you just said, we have apps, we have games, we have things that we can do. We have, touch screen things that we can use, that we can employ our motor skills in addition to our brain. So it's things like that that can keep us active and motivated. And what I also really love about these apps and these games is that the reality is not everybody enjoys doing things like that in groups. Not everybody enjoys playing games in groups or activities or exercising in groups. There are many people who enjoy these activities alone or who would rather do them alone for whatever reason. And that's great. And I love these types of activities because there's truly something for everyone. Everything from, putting puzzles together. I had a gentleman come up to me after a workshop and he said, I challenge myself. I go and I get the 1,000-piece puzzles instead of the 100-piece puzzles because I love puzzles and I really enjoy them. And that's a way that I keep my brain going is I challenge myself. And then after the thousands, I want to get, the 3D puzzles and I want to, kind of see where that takes me. So that was him. He was really excited about that process. And again, that's something he enjoys. It's something he's going to do all the time. And it's something that he wants to do, which is really the whole basis of this. Right? Absolutely. Other things to challenge and engage you, education. So things like we're doing right now, everybody who's listening to this information and taking it in, you're processing it, you're thinking about it, you're figuring out ways to implement it. So any kind of formal education, whether it's taking a class at a community college, whether it's listening to a weekly podcast, whether it's, joining going to your local library and participating in a workshop, an awareness program, a craft, all of these different things, getting yourself exposed to formal education in different atmospheres will also help reduce your risk of cognitive decline because you're keeping those muscles in your brain active. If you think about exercising your arms and your legs and your whole body, your brain has to be exercised too. So it's one of the best ways that we can do that.
Oh, that's great. So what about in terms of social engagement? I mean, there's a lot of people who are happy to be, I don't want to say alone, but, they have a very tight knit, maybe family and group of friends, and that's really all they really are into. So is social engagement necessary, do you think, for those types of people too? I mean,
absolutely. Absolutely. Social engagement. And I love the way you describe that because again, social engagement is different for everyone. It doesn't mean that you have, you necessarily have all of these activities you're in, and maybe that's true for you. But for some people, like you've mentioned, or for most people, it's kind of that group of core friends. So socialization is extremely important. And it's something that, I know we can continue to talk about in terms of the benefits of it and also how people can socialize based on what their needs are or their limitations.
Okay, yeah. So let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll continue with the topic of socialization. You're listening to Project Independence in You on WCWP.org, 88.1 FM, and we'll be right back.
Take WCWP with you wherever you go with the WCWP app. Listen live 24/7 to all of our streams, all from one app. Plus, call the studios directly from the app and visit our social media. Download the app through the iOS App Store on Apple devices or the Google Play Store on Android by searching WCWP Radio or visit WCWP.org for links. The WCWP app, available now on iOS and Android devices.
And welcome back to Project Independence in You on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. I'm Rebecca Miller along with Kristina Liu, and we're speaking with Taryn Kutujian from the Alzheimer's Association, the Long Island chapter. And Taryn is a senior community education manager. You're also an LMSW. So, at Project Independence, we do have a wonderful group of social workers, and along with Kristina, who is also a social worker. So we just love
social worker. Love our social workers.
Love our social workers. So we're talking a lot about healthy living and socialization, and you were continuing. We'll go back to what you were talking about before we took a real quick break.
Sure. Yeah. So, we were talking about socialization and how, again, just like everything we've been talking about, there's no one size that fits everyone. So, let's say if you're someone who, enjoys being out and about and being, among groups and group activities, do you enjoy singing? Maybe you could join a choir. Maybe you could join, a local group. Let's say, holidays are coming. Maybe you want to sing some carols, or maybe you want to participate in something that's going on. It could also be something artistic, right? So if,
Right.
again, one of those things that is something that maybe you enjoy by yourself, if you want to, get some paints or paint a picture, or, anything that's enjoyable to you, textures, different colors, different things, finger paints, watercolors, again, not a one size fits all. If you're someone who enjoys your family and enjoys a small group of friends, share with them what you enjoy. And if you are someone who's listening as a family member or as a caregiver, be open to the things that that person might want to share with you. It might not be an activity you enjoy, or it might not be something that you choose to do, but it's something that you know that that person will enjoy, and allow them that space to share that with you. And you'll be amazed at how much better someone will feel mentally and physically when they're actually able to share something that they love with everyone. A big example of this is, let's say, culture. So, many of us as we age, we often want to share, details and traditions and things with our families and with our children and grandchildren. And, many of us are running and going. And a lot of people will say there's never enough time, or there's never enough, moments to share and to exchange. And really thinking about that quality over quantity. And I know that this is easier said than done, but when someone maybe has a limited social circle and you find yourself lucky enough to be a part of that person's circle, thinking about, showing them that you care about being a part of what they want to do just as much as they do. Because sometimes all a person needs is that little nudge from people that they love and they trust to feel better about doing something that might be, they might find embarrassing, or that they might be afraid to do. For example, so, my mom was starting to exercise, and she was very nervous about it because she had never exercised, and she was very kind of, by herself. She's like, I want to do this by myself. I don't really want to do it in a group. And so we encouraged her as members of her family, as people who love her, to kind of experiment and try that. And then she started coming up with these things in the living room, and she wanted us to try the dances with her, and we're laughing and having a good time. And she's doing what she wants to do, which is moving around. And we're making that experience even better for her because we're making it a positive experience.
Wow, that's great. Great. And I love the whole creativity, you were talking a little bit about that. That's actually one of my questions I was just writing down, like creativity and painting. And, I'm sure there's a lot of people who've always wished they could paint or wish they could do something like that. But, sometimes it could be just for fun too, so yeah, that's really wonderful.
Absolutely. I mean, I know for me, when I was a kid, I would always, my parents would always take me to the local library, and I would do the crafts, like the weekly activities, or I would go to bingo, like kids bingo, or all these different types of activities. And a lot of us, forget that these things are still there. If you were to open your library's catalog right now, they have amazing programs like that for adults as well. They have movie nights. They have things that you can do, little cooking classes. Many of places now have virtual and in-person offerings. So if you're not able to get somewhere for transportation issues, or you can still be a part of these experiences, it's one of the best things to come out of the system that we're in right now.
And, one of the things we always talk with our guests about, of course, is over COVID, we all became super familiar with Zoom and those kinds of, platforms, which we're on right now, because in addition to being on the radio, all our shows also air on North Hempstead Television and, YouTube and all those different platforms too. So how wonderful that if you are someone experiencing any kind of condition, you can go on Zoom and be with your family or friends in different parts, even of the country, because now that COVID is kind of, people are coming out more and they're not needing it as much because of COVID. It's still something that we're going to continue to use forever.
No, and especially people who are dealing, with an Alzheimer's situation, or if you're a caregiver, we say this all the time. Our caregiver support group is mostly people who are struggling with, the caregivers for someone who has dementia or Alzheimer's or something else. And they can't really get out because they're a caregiver. So they're choosing to always keep it virtual because they're able to have that little space, but they know that their, spouse is in the other room and they're able to be there if needed, and I think
Absolutely.
that's so, it is a silver lining to this horrible situation that we're all in, that this kind of medium became more, integrated into all these different programs.
Absolutely. I mean, Kristina, you're 1,000% right. One of the reasons why, especially for us at the Alzheimer's Association, why virtual programming and virtual support groups won't go away, is because our caregivers have told us that this is something that they really want and that they need. Many caregivers, just like you described, either can't or don't feel comfortable leaving their loved one for an extended period of time, or they won't be able to focus because they'll constantly be thinking about their loved one and if they're okay and if they're being managed the way that they need to be. So this is a way for us to get caregivers not only the support they need, but to get them the information and the resources they need at varying stages or regardless of what may happen in that person's treatment or situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
If Otto were here, he would be telling you all about, Alexa and those kinds of devices and how wonderful they are for people as we get older. I mean, Alexa can play, or those other devices, those other virtual devices can play music from the 20s, from the 30s, from the 40s, from the 50s. It can be a reminder. There's so many things that it can be programmed to do and also just do for seniors. So
and it's definitely so, and that's why we always encourage people, listen, we still have a huge chunk of people who are very, don't even want to touch these kind of technology things, but it's so important. I think about all the time, my own grandfather when he was alive, he had my mom and I who were always there, who were very engaged. He was a photographer, so I would spend hours with him about that, so that was so important to him. But I remember him saying once, that he had friends that would just go, weeks and weeks not talking to a soul, because they were just alone. And, so you're literally not stimulating any kind of part of your brain. And you really see the impact that has on someone, so it's, we always push you, if you were alone, to, dabble into this kind of virtual world, because just the mere thing of being able to FaceTime with a friend or a family member, goes such a long way for so many different reasons. So that's what we just call 311 if you need help, with technology. We can try and give you some tips and hook you up with Barbara Melman, right, Beck?
Yeah, definitely technology for the terrified. Yeah. But something else that Otto is, kind of we talk a lot about, and he kind of is pushing for, is the social aspect of even playing games, apps in groups. Because again, if you're not near people. He was talking about words with friends.
Yeah, his whole family plays it. His whole family does, yeah.
And it's just so wonderful, to kind of know that you can do things like that. I'll play my uncle and then I'll play someone else, but to kind of be in this kind of, I don't want to say competition, but whatever is healthy, social situation. So there are so many things that, people can do. And I know over break, this is not probably even your field, but I wonder too, with social media and the younger generation, and we may not know this for many years to come, but because things are so much at their fingertips, that they're not kind of expanding those processes that we grew up with, going to researching, waiting to find results and answers, having to maybe go to multiple libraries or multiple.
Yeah, do a calculation, in your.
Exactly. That, it's so immediate. And I'm already a victim of it. I know, but I had the foundation and the growth in my brain of, knowing how to do these things, how to even how to go to a bank, how to write a check, how to do things like that. Those things will probably be obsolete anyway, coming soon. But I'm wondering if there is a concern with, I don't want to say the Alzheimer's Foundation, but just in general, that because they're not kind of growing or evolving those parts of the brain that are so involved cognitively with day-to-day life, are we worried that is going to, I don't want to say trigger dementia, but have some kind of impact on the brain as we get older, hasten things, make things quicker?
Sure. So unfortunately, I can't speak to any kind of causalities or correlations or relationships between cognition or cognitive decline and social media with children or with anyone. But on the flip side of what you're saying, though, I know we've been talking a lot about positivity and hope and things. One of kind of the most beautiful things about social media and how and how kids and teens and everyone can use it is it can really bridge the gap between them and their grandparents or other people in their family, their aunts and uncles who are a little bit older, because there's such things like Candy Crush and words with things that we've been talking about, words with friends, or these games that you can play across platforms. You can chat with each other, you can talk to each other, you can send things to each other. So these allow these relationships to continue and for people to stay engaged with each other and families. The other thing that it can also do, kind of like you just said before, that Otto would mention, and hopefully he would like that I would say this, we have such a luxury now to be able to pull up, like you said, the Macy's parade theme song from the original parade, or, Andrea Bocelli's concert from, 30 years ago that somebody may have attended. We have this amazing ability, or photos from a place that a person may have visited, to create these amazing experiences that can help us kind of connect with people. So in that way, and I definitely hear you about the potential challenges and things about social media and about the internet, but there are so many things that we can do to utilize these kind of things that are all available to us for good, and things that we can do to improve the quality of life, not only for everyone in the family, but for that person that may be struggling with cognition issues or cognitive decline or memory or Alzheimer's or dementia.
Right, yeah.
And that's what always the fact of the correlation, because being with Project Independence for many, many years now, that's come up so much over time, is really the benefits of music and memory.
Yes,
And there's music
absolutely.
and memory program, and just seeing, and there's, documentaries that I've watched that were just, what that does for people is so absolutely incredible. And with things that we had mentioned, with like an Alexa, when you could be like, Alexa, play blah, 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 just to have that. And it really can stimulate someone who's been struggling, and it's just a little simple thing, and that always will forever just be so mind-blowing to me, that you can just take these little small steps like that to really connect with someone.
Absolutely, Kristina. I mean, like you just said with music, that there are studies that show that and then you could put on a song from when that person was a teenager, and they can remember that song, but they might not remember
Right.
other details about their life, or other long-term memories. But music is something very special, and it connects to us in a very deep way. And it's something, like you said, that there's so many studies and a lot of great documentaries. Alive Inside is a good example of one, that really, really show you just how beautiful music can make an experience for an individual with dementia or Alzheimer's disease.
And what I really want to touch upon, we're so fortunate at Project Independence to be, partnered with you guys in so many programs. You guys have always been an asset in just so many different topics. And this one is Rebecca and I's favorite, version of everything, because it is positive, and it's inspirational and hopeful to do these kind of, different little steps that you could, make your life and your brain health, better and stronger.
Absolutely.
But I also want people to know that the Alzheimer's Association offers so many programs. I know you said that there's been, still some virtual stuff. So just give us a little glimpse, because I really want everyone to know what you guys offer over there.
Thank you. Yeah, I would love to talk about that. So one of the things I wanted to let everyone know about, and we'll send this information to you so that, if anybody is looking for this in email or wants to sign up, they absolutely can. But one of the things we were just talking about, music, engagement, right? Social activity. So we have these amazing programs called memory cafes. So memory cafes are for early stage individuals, early stage social engagement programs. They offer fun ways, comfortable ways. They have music, they have coffee, tea, there's some desserts. It's a time for people to get together, to enjoy that time. And we're doing this in partnership with Aetna and with the Atria on Roslyn Harbor. So we're having this memory cafe coming up on Tuesday, September 13th from 2 to 3 p.m. And we're having it again on November 8th from 2 to 3 p.m. And you can call 800-272-3900 to see if you can register for that program. We would love for you to join us. So that's one example of things that we offer, memory cafes. We also have support support groups. So we have virtual and in-person support groups all across Long Island. We have over 20 support groups. So there's literally a place for everyone in terms of where you live or what you're looking to do, whether it's virtual or in person. Many of our support groups are for caregivers. And if you're looking for information or resources, if you're someone who has Alzheimer's or dementia, we can also provide you with some information for that as well. We also have care consultations, which are, kind of what we were talking a little bit about before with kind of treatment plans and things. So, our master's level clinicians or care service managers will ask lots of questions, things that, you may be already dealing with, or things that maybe you don't know that you have to deal with, things like power of attorney or legal and financial planning, medications, transportation, day programs, different types of things that you specifically might need or that person might need, taking into account all of the challenges and all of the strengths that you and your family have going for you. So whether you have family members in multiple states, whether, the person lives far from a hospital or a facility where they get most of their treatment, or they haven't been able to connect with the physician who can give them the testing and the screenings that they need to see, what exactly is going on. We can provide information and free support and services for all of those things. We also have our education programs. I'm lucky enough to be part of the education team where we provide programs and trainings all across Long Island. And it's one of the best things that we get to do. We get to talk to first responders. We get to talk to physicians. We get to talk to community members, seniors, everyone who's interested in getting formal education about the disease, but also caregivers, people who are struggling, people who are challenged, people who are looking for resources and looking for that safety net. These are some of the many, many things that we provide. And again, because we're a national organization, we provide all of these services all across the country, and we provide them to everyone for free. Our helpline is available in over 200 languages. So if language is a concern or is a barrier, you never have to worry about that when you're reaching out to us. And many people will also think that you have to have a diagnosis of dementia or Alzheimer's disease to call us and to request services or support, and you absolutely don't have to. You can also call us at 3 a.m. if you're a caregiver or you're, someone who's concerned, you have questions, you have thoughts, you're not sure, what you're struggling with. You can call us at any time of day. We're available during every holiday, every situation, every time, and anytime you need us.
Wow. That was perfect conclusion. I'm like, I don't even know what to say. Taryn, thank you so much for joining us today and giving us a full hour of your time. Every bit of information, so important, and so many ways to get in contact with the Alzheimer's Association. And that's great. If you didn't jot it down, you can always call 3-1. Again, thank you so much, Taryn.